Welcome back. One of the close allies of NCBA is the Public Lands Council, or PLC. The members of the Public Lands Council work together to protect the interests of producers who operate on public lands. We learn more about how the PLC is making a difference from Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Russell Nemitz.
PLC is an organization that represents public land ranchers in the 13 western public land states, and they are primarily represent nearly 50% of the sheep and lamb production in the United States and some 25% of the beef cattle.
Each and every year, members of the Public Lands Council take to Capitol Hill to work with members of Congress about the issues that are impacting those that use federal or public lands as part of their ranching and grazing operation.
We are here advocating for the public lands industry, for the grazing industry, that we produce food and fiber for the nation. And we are here to talk about some of the issues that affect our businesses, our rural communities, and the natural resources at home.
It's absolutely important that members come to Capitol Hill and talk to members of Congress. Our members being up here, they can tell their story like no one else. We represent them as staff up here on a day-to-day basis, but every time that they come into town, they're noticed on Capitol Hill, and their members of Congress want to see them here, telling them about the issues that they face on their daily operations and why it's so important to have that congressional support to allow them to continue carrying on the tradition of ranching in the West and across the country.
It's the investment in that tradition that drives members of the Public Lands Council to make the journey to our nation's capital to educate others about issues that impact them most. Many of their concerns deal with protecting the environment and wildlife, but PLC members say regulations like the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act too often put undue burdens on today's farmers and ranchers.
Some of the main issues are things like ESA, the Endangered Species Act, the NEPA, some of the rules and regulations that we face, and then also the fact that we're trying to educate some on what we do with the public lands and how it's tied to base property and supports the rural economies and the western communities.
One thing, the rules and regulations continue to go on. It's just getting harder and harder to operate on public lands, and so we're just trying to make it so we can make a living and keep on the land.
The Public Lands Council also says it's key that both members of Congress and the American public understand the important role ranchers play in managing and caring for the vast lands of the western United States.
Federal lands benefit from the management provided by those ranchers that are out there. Ranchers are on the federal lands, our nation's lands, every day managing their livestock, when federal bureaucrats are there maybe once a month or every few months to check on the status of those lands. So it's highly important, very beneficial for the taxpayers of America for our members to be out there managing those lands on their behalf.
And it's beneficial for America's cattlemen and women to speak up in numbers. The Public Lands Council and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association work hand in hand to represent the best interests of the beef cattle industry to the U.S. government. It's something you can help with.
PLC and NCBA work together day in and day out up here on Capitol Hill, and really through our members being engaged in both organizations. Many of the PLC members are also members of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and enjoy being part of both organizations and working to better the industry on behalf of all ranchers across the United States.
Public Lands Council works hand in hand with NCBA on federal lands issues and other issues that affect the cattle industry, because all of the industry is intertwined, so we work very well hand in hand.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., I'm Russell Nemitz for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.